Patrick is a regular speaker at CIPD and World of Learning conferences and inventor of a world-class software system, Gold, that helps organisations to embed learning, automotive evaluation reports and efficiently manage their return on investment challenges. So if you could please give a big warm welcome to Patrick Taggart.
Thank you, Manny. Good evening, everybody. As Manny says, thank you for taking the time out this evening to come and listen to this session. And I'll keep it hopefully to about 45 minutes. At one stage I was told, well, given the idea that it would run from 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock, but Manny said no, 45 minutes might be enough for the students. And but anyway, the bottom line for me, I'm hoping that whether it's 45 minutes or it's 2 hours, there's information in here that you can subsequently use in your studies and then more importantly when you actually venture into the world of work, because the thinking that we are able to share is not commonly known or understood in organisations, and sadly the topic needs to be addressed in a much better fashion than it currently is. But if you're able to use this, it will give you an edge in the organisations that you subsequently work for, because what you'll find is a lot of your colleagues won't understand it or know about it. And it'll give you the chance to actually look better in your organisations than people who should understand this, but for different reasons don't. Okay, and I hope you don't mind, but I've got a colleague with me, Jack, and he'll probably be doing a bit of videoing, so we will stick this on our YouTube channel. So again, if you wanted to go back over any of the information, if you missed bits, you can always watch that. And also, we're more than happy to the slides. Manny, will you be able to circulate the slides for people? Yeah, and then we've got some good case studies or white papers on our website that if you wanted access to those, if you just go onto that and say, send me whatever you've got, case studies, white papers, etc. Again, it is leading edge, and we're proud to say so. And we get that commendation from our clients as well. Just that, very quickly, does everybody know what the L&D stood for? A bit presumptuous on my part, I think that people might know, and I found out that some people might not. Anybody? Go on then.
Learning and development.
Yeah, so it stands for learning and development. Learning and development waste. How much organisations currently spending on training, and this is a global spend, and why do they waste 80% of it? Okay. So without further ado, I'll go through, and it's probably easier if we take questions at the end. If anybody has got an absolutely burning question as I'm working my way through it, by all means, sort of, ask the question at the time. But it's probably easier for us and for your colleagues if you jot the question down and we pick them up at the end. So Manny's mentioned this. I did about 20 years in the organisations, and I specialise in human resource management for sales. And then in '97 I started to run my own business, and I actually started teaching at Coventry University. I was working for Barclays Premier, doing assessment centres and training for Rolls-Royce. And so now, since '97, I've been working on this. At one point I would point out, this issue about waste in training and why do companies spend, I mean the figure is actually £500 billion per annum organisations spend on training. £500 billion per annum. 80% of it never gets applied to the job. Okay? And very briefly, that's because when people go on training, when they go back to their job, it's generally incredibly busy, and within 5 days they have forgotten 80% of what they were learning. And the research is by a company, if you wanted to research it, there's a company called the Kite Foundation. Kite Foundation, based in Cranfield. They carried out a lot of research to try and understand what was being spent and what was being applied. But what happened for me, and why I got interested in this subject, was I was teaching at Coventry University for 4 years in the early 2000s, and I won £1.5 million from European Social Fund money to train managers in the Midlands. And what happened was 800 managers went through the training, most passed the qualification, and most really enjoyed the sessions. But when I went to the organisations and started interviewing their managers to find out how much more successful or skillful the people were based on what we'd done with them, the answers was next to nothing. So I realised that we had 1.5 million, individuals liked it, got a qualification, but weren't using it in the job. And that, at that stage, that was enough for me. And I decided to resign from university, and I've been on a journey since, trying to develop models, written books, case studies, software products to stop that happening again. So what I want to cover in the 45 minutes or so is what is wrong with learning and development, that all our organisations continue to make these mistakes. How do we put right what is currently wrong? And it's actually, it should be released tonight. Because they've been involved in creating the problem, they can't see their way out. Because I was cynical about training, when I used to commission training, I was head of HR for the Alliance in Leicester and for Royal Mail, I used to commission training, and I knew a lot of our people were not actually that much more successful afterwards than before. So I've always had a bit of cynicism about, not the training, the process in the company to allow them to use the training. That's the problem. So the training is generally quite good, and quite often we wouldn't criticise the training or the training companies. What we would criticise is the process in organisations to allow somebody to go back the following day, and when they go back, the manager said, "Oh, I'm delighted that you're back, because yesterday was really busy, get on with your job." And that's where it starts to fall apart. So how do we achieve that cultural shift? I would complain about the training providers because of these sorts of things. Research that we find out is when people go on training, at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, they get a chance to fill in a form quite often. And they'll say whether the training was good, or the trainer was good, the material was good, or the room was good, or the food was good. And that is absolutely shambolic. That process should be abolished immediately, because it absolutely creates the wrong impression in the manager or the employee as to why they're there. Okay? And it does not give us any indication going forward as to whether they're going to use that training, either for them, their team, that company, or the customers. But sadly, training providers get excited with this sort of nonsense. 94% of our participants say we are excellent or good. If I work with that organisation, I would say, how many training programs did you use? What proportion of it were your people applying? What effect was that having for them, their team, the company, and the customer? And what return on investment did it generate? If they had to spend £1,000 on you, were they able to go back and do something that saved £1,000 and made £1,000? So it's self-financing. And they cannot answer those questions. So sadly, sometimes these organisations don't really like us, because we would explain to them that that is out of date. It needs to be improved. If they do that and they do some other forms of measurement, which I'll cover in a minute, fair enough, because I suppose and it's minimum, it gives them an idea of a quality check. And that's the best we can say. And this sort of thing, when they finish, they come up and somebody signs a form and says, "Bravo, you've attended today." And they go home and they put it in a folder. For CPD purposes, that's probably the right stuff. But it's no indication of are these people being able to use that later on. They're more skillful because of it. And this figure here, as I mentioned, references the Kite Foundation. I mean, it was actually done in dollars. It was $670 billion. When we converted it to sterling, it worked out at 500 spent, 80% wasted, so 400 wasted. How many people are doing human resource management program study? Not many? One? Okay. So a whole range of different postgrad courses, I'm guessing. Yeah? Well, it won't really matter what you're doing, because my view is if you end up as a senior manager in an organisation and you're able to start challenging what happens at the moment based on some of this, it will move your firm massively on compared to those that you compete against. But there are some good people out there who do some work to try and help us. And this guy, Patrick, American, was one of the first guys who said to organisations that if you want to start to measure training, you should do it against 4 different metrics. And really the first one is the happy sheet, which is what we've called our book. Because we call this, the happy sheet is, did you have a good day? You know, was the food okay? Was the room okay? Was the trainer fine? Was the content good? Etc. So from the happy sheet, so although he calls it reaction, and it's where we had that 94%. But it's a very easy way of measuring whether anything is happening or not. But what this is another good organisation to research if you're interested in this topic is the American American Training and Development, ATD, and they are very, very good at this. We've got an office in New York. We've got 3 people based in Long Island. And when I go to America, I go for a couple of months or so. They are so much more clued up than we are in the United Kingdom. And it pains me to say so. But a lot of the people I've learned from have been Americans or worked with in this area. And Kirkpatrick's one. But what he showed was, and this was over 1,000 organisations, 89% of those organisations carried out that happy sheet at the end of their training. Did they learn anything? So it could be a qualification, or it could be a questionnaire at the beginning. So they'd be going on a leadership course, short questions on leadership. What do you know about communication, influencing, motivation, decision making, etc. And then you do it again at the end. And if you've got better scores at the end, it'll give you some indication of learning. This one, what Kirkpatrick was saying is, it was probably sensible to try and find out, do the people change their approach? After the training, when they go back and they're looking after their team, or whatever they might be doing, if you think about leadership, do they change their approach? Are they a bit more skillful or considerate or thoughtful or inspiring after the training than they were before? Unfortunately, only 13% of the organisations that were running training and spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars on it were doing that. And worse still, only 4% of organisations were in a position to find out, did they enjoy it, did they learn, did they change, and if they did, what impact did it have on either them, the team, the company, or the school. And in our view, that is a disgrace, because this is not very difficult to do. You do have to have a number of simple processes in place. But the companies that we work with now, where we work really well with them, this would be probably 75% of their programs. They would want to know whether they're impacting the bottom line. It's not necessarily for everything, but we try and get them to that level. And then the other thing, very much on here, is if I go to London to training conferences, learning development conferences, HR conferences, what I find is there's loads and loads and loads of organisations that are interested in developing better e-learning, developing better personal effectiveness skills training, games for leaders to solve problems. All the focus is on the training. Okay? They don't do anything before, so they don't get an understanding of maybe what they need to learn. What kind of behavioural change would they want? What is the organisation looking for? You know, what would success look like? You know, if they're spending £100,000 on this programme, would it be great if the people could come back and do something and save £200,000? The training providers are only interested in making their training more sexy, yeah, more interesting than anybody else. So the analysis that's required to know what does success look like at the beginning is not done by training providers. Yeah? They get told what to do and then they go and do it. We got a contract with London Taxi Company. London Taxi Company said to me, some of our cell leaders are not the best, they need training, and we want you to do the leadership programme. And we said, well, what's the problem? What's going on in those areas? What are they not doing and what are they doing? And they were struggling at first to answer those questions. So we pushed them really hard. And then what happened was, before we decided to do the training for them, we had a really good idea of what was success like, what do the people do know or don't know, yeah, what kind of behaviours would the staff want the managers to be able to operate under, etc., etc. So funny enough, then once we got some really good measures of success, and then we put the training in place, and we had to make sure that rather than this, where at the end of the training in most organisations they get a happy sheet. What we did here, this is from a guy called John Darling, again an American, who talked about how you move from this model, which generates not a lot, this model which generates incredible impact, is you do some analysis at the front end, a relevant amount of training in the middle, and then you have support systems in place. So you might do that happy sheet, but also you have to have your managers geared up so that you don't come back on Monday doing training Friday and they say, oh, thank heaven you're back because Friday was murder and get on with your job. What your manager says is, let's have a coffee and I'll have a chat with you about what you were doing and how can I help you to use it. And it's as simple as that. Simple as that. Whereas what happens is if they give you the indication that they're going to help you try something or get freedom to try something different, funny enough, that starts to sort of surface. Okay. I suppose I won't dwell on this too much, but what happens is, how many people are familiar with appraisal systems? Appraisal systems training, yeah? Performance reviews, yeah? A lot of organisations, when you have your review, there's a little section in there that's about your training and development needs. What then happens is somebody collates that and then they sort of decide they should solve those by designing something, then they deliver it and then they try and measure it. What's your first thoughts about this? Is that a good model for companies or not? Or is there anything missing? Go on, very good. Have a guess. I'll just tell you then what's missing. What is missing is there is a disconnect between what the organisation is aiming for and what the individuals might want to learn. Because if you do it at an appraisal, it's generally based on what's in it for me. Yeah? Whereas what the company should say is, what are we good at? What are we not so good at? What would we have to do to become good at that? And then they look at the training needs below that. So there is a chance that you could capture them at appraisal, but they absolutely have to make sure that whatever's coming out of those lists is going to be needed by the firm to take it forward. And the other massive problem in this, and I went to Louisiana University and I worked with a guy called Elwood Holton. Elwood Holton, again, if you want to read around his work, he's a master at a subject called learning transfer. Anybody any ideas what learning transfer might mean? And what was he saying? What do you think he was talking about when he started talking about learning transfer? What have I been suggesting doesn't happen when people go back to the workplace? Sorry?
Attitude and work behaviour to that workplace.
Yeah, it has to be an attitudinal shift on both the part of the person who's training, but also their boss. And what he said to me was, if you just go from delivering the training to measure it, and the culture in the organisation is not conducive for them to be able to use new skills or knowledge, nothing happens. So when you start to measure it, you're very, very disappointed. And sometimes they blame the training. Okay? So this model, if you read some of the learning and development, training development, HRM books, this is still in the book. What happened was I went away to America in 2003 after I decided to resign from Coventry University, and I made a decision that if I ever won £1.5 million again, or managed to access that sort of funding, we wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Next time round, I would want evidence that shows they all passed, they know for the training, but they applied it in their businesses and their businesses were better. So basically, when I came back from America, this is what I had invented. And this replaces what you just see. And this is more strategic, this is more linked to what the company's after. And what we say at the top is we start there. So when we went to London factories, we said, what is working and what is not? And are you sure it's leadership? Yeah, are you sure it's leadership that we need? And then what we do, we go to the second one. And that says, if we think it could be leaders, we want to know what they're currently doing or what they're not currently doing. Yeah? And once we start to understand the gaps, yeah, then we start to set a few targets. And we say, right, managers would want to achieve this, the company are looking for this, the employees that work for the managers would want the managers to do this, the customers are moaning about this. So we start to set some really specific goals and targets. So we do a lot of analysis at the front end. And only when we do the analysis would we even consider doing the training. And that's classed as the training. Okay. So we work out what they need, and then what we do, and this is what the Elwood Hamilton talked to us about. He said, unless you have a good process around the training won't work. So we have this in place. I'm sure the intervention is applied. And that could be a whole range of things. It could be line manager support, it could be getting back together every now and again and they do some buddy support. They have what we call action and learning sets. So they keep revisiting the material. We did some great work for BT, British Telecom, down in London. We trained them in Glasgow. And basically what we got them to do was, instead of just going on one-day training programs, they had to come back for half days, month after month after month. And at first I thought it was a crazy idea. But when they came back for the first month and we were asking them questions, what can you remember from 2 months ago on these programs? It was all sales training. What can you remember? And they started to say, I can't remember anything. And we said, well, have you any idea why you're here again then? And so in the end, the pennies started to drop, they started to get it and understand that you can't throw stuff at people and expect them to change. So the American Elwood Hamilton taught us that you have to partner them together. You absolutely have to partner them together. And sadly, in the previous model, we throw training at people,